state your name and what you do.
My name is Tom PULLIG. I'm a physician at Hot Springs Village.
Do you care if I ask about your childhood?
I was born in Magnolia, Arkansas on September 26, 1942.
Is it okay if we ask a few questions?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So, what were your parents like?
My mother's name was Margie. Maiden name Jameson. My daddy's name was Thomas Vernon PULLIG, and he grew up loving baseball. And when he got old enough, he started playing baseball. And then World War II broke out, and he was drafted into the Army, and where he spent a good portion of his youth in the Army. And then he was discharged from the Army when the war was over with, and he went back to playing baseball. And he played baseball until he got too old, and he came back to Mike Neal. And he came back to Mike Neal and had a grocery store, and I graduated from high school there and worked in that grocery store.
How did World War II affect your family?
It interrupted my father's career. I was not born until after the war started, but my dad was involved in baseball, and as a young man, he spent his youth, or prime time for an athlete, in the 82nd Airborne Division fighting the Germans in World War II. When he came back, he was 28, 29 years old, and by the time he was in mid-30s, he was past his prime.
So how were times different back then than they are now?
Primarily the technology. We had just started with television when I was 10 or 11 years old, and no computers or anything, and now this is common.
What?
And now this is common.
So do you think technology has ruined the current generation? Do you think the current generation has been ruined from technology?
Been ruined?
Yes.
No, not at all.
So you're okay with the current technology improving?
Technology has improved in my field, medicine, a lot. And I'm sure every field has improved technology. Now, like anything else, you can abuse it, and you can start watching your phone and not paying attention to who's around, and all I see is the top of your head, and I want to see you and talk to you, and all I see is the top of your head, and I ask you a question, and all I get is an inaudible no, shoulder to shoulders, and it's insulting or it's offensive to me. And so I'm trying to teach my grandkids that is the wrong way to do. You cannot play games, when you should be socializing. You gotta socialize with your friends or your family, or you're gonna be set over in a corner by yourself and have no friends except your computer and your cell phone. And that's not the way life is. Relationships are very important, and you gotta work on your relationships and not spend all your time with your head stuck in a computer or in a cell phone playing games, and it doesn't accomplish anything. You're accomplishing nothing. And you need to accomplish something. You need to grow. You need to grow your mind. You need to get educated. You need to socialize. It's a very important part of your growing up. And it's not sitting there with your eyes focused on a cell phone. And I get tired of seeing the top of your head and your head bent down. All I know is that. And when I say something to you, you shrug your shoulders and you say some inaudible and it's offensive to me. That's how technology can ruin you. What's your other question?
Jackson.
So we're gonna move on away from your younger years. We're gonna move on to your. So how are your teen years like?
How am I what?
Your teenage years.
Teenage years? That was in McNeil, Arkansas.
Like,
When I became 13 or 14, I was in school at McNeil. It was a small school, knew everybody, all the way from grade 1 to 12. My class was 12. And, you know, when you get to be teens, you begin thinking about the opposite sex and begin running around. And sometimes you want to develop a relationship with the opposite sex, the woman. And so we did that. Then when I got old enough to drive a car, you expanded your field, go out and meet some more friends. Then, of course, the one I always came back to was this girl I knew all the way from the 4th grade. Her name was Johnny Favon. And by the time when her parents let her start dating, I started dating her. And in a few years, and I was off to school.
So how was how was middle school like for you back then? How was middle school like for you back then?
Middle school?
How was it back then
how
for
is
you?
it different from...
Well, our school building was one long building. At one end was what we call elementary school, and there's 3 rooms, 3 school rooms down there. The 1st and 2nd room, the 3rd and 4th room, and the 5th and 6th room. And so you stayed in those rooms, and one teacher in each one. Miss King was my 1st and 2nd grade teacher. Miss Burrows was my 3rd and 4th grade teacher, and Miss Childs was my 5th, 6th grade teacher. Then when we got old enough, we moved up to the 7th grade, and that's up the hall in the building about another few feet. And we had different teachers, one of which was Mr. Fowler, who was also the superintendent of school because he wanted to teach his daughter who was in my class. So he taught most of our classes until we were in the 9th grade. And in the 9th grade, we had other teachers, and I took science and biology and typing and civics and history and math. Took algebra and geometry, and graduated after 12 years.
So, how was your high school experience?
High school experience was fine. I studied hard, and
You
I didn't get no significant trouble. There was, of course, now there's no drugs in. Some people and teenagers and stuff would have to drive out of the county to go get beer and alcohol, but I had a conviction that that wasn't what I wanted to do because I had learned it through my religious experiences, that it's wrong for your health, it's wrong for for how you influence other people, and it's very, very dangerous. And so I never chose to go that direction. I guess at some time or another, every kid experiments some, but my experiment was after I was grown, and it just reaffirmed what I had learned in my youthful years, not to participate in anything that's unhealthy or that would put you in danger. And that's what alcohol and drugs do. Now, there wasn't any drugs. There wasn't any problem with drugs then.
So, how was your college experience like?
My college experience, I was focused, and I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to medical school, and so I worked hard. I never was real smart, but I worked hard, and I was trying to get in medical school, and the first time I didn't get in, and Vietnam War was going on, and the local draft board said they were fixing to draft me. So to keep from being drafted, and told them if they had let me finish my education, which included going to medical school, that I would join them. Well, they said, sorry, you're up to be drafted. Someone told me, with your degree from college in biology and chemistry, you could get an emergency teaching certificate and teach school, and that would defer you from the draft. And so I found out how I could get an emergency teaching certificate and found me a job at Hermitage. Not much older than my students, and they wanted me to stay another year, but I got in school, and so I left teaching, and I went back to school, and ended up graduating medical school in 1971. And then after that, I went into the military.
So that's all the questions we really had for like your younger years. We can stop there.